This time it's the complete overhaul of the front axle of a Passat B6 with a 1.4 liter petrol engine, and yeah, it's a complete mess, this video actually. It's a complete journey through trial and error, but well, let's start with something really simple. We also did on top of that engine oil and gearbox oil. The oil filter in the Passat B6 is really nicely located, and you don't have any trouble with making a mess here because it comes out bone dry, and yeah, that's pretty comfortable. But I think that's all with the comfort so far, to give you a little bit of a teaser at here. So the car is 15 years old and has 210,000 kilometers on it. Always make sure to put some fresh oil on the gasket of the filter. And yeah, normally you can just screw them down by hand. I just give it a little bit of help here with the tool. Also, don't know if I even show that in the video, but just to make sure that it's tight enough. So, but yeah, in order to debuild the front axle and debuild the McPherson struts from the front axle, you need to detach this plastic cover from the car. And to detach the cover, you also need to detach the wipers. And we had some trouble to detach them because I didn't have the proper tool for that, so just used some tool you see here. And the big hint here is to use a washer at the end of the axle of the wiper, just to give that pin of the tool a little bit of a center. And then it went pretty easy, so just make sure you push that down by hand a little bit, that it does not hook on there too much on the axle. And then these plastic covers are just pulled out by hand. It's like yeah, octagonal to the window, which yeah, after the front first part I thought would be pretty easy, so I just gave the second one a rather too big impact with my hand and just pulled a hole in it, which was really stupid. And yeah, be sure to be a little bit more delicate with the plastics here, especially on older cars. And it went really easy with a screwdriver instead. So next would be searching for the transmission oil infill plug. That's quite hard to find, but you see it in the video here. And the pro tip is here to first release the infill plug, and then release the lower plug, because if you don't get the upper plug untied, then you are stuck with a transmission without any oil. And yeah, oil looks pretty well here. We spilled a little bit on the floor, which yeah, was a bit of a mess, but with some sawdust could get rid of that, so not that big of a deal. And yeah, and finally put the plug back in, and with some tubing and a funnel, you're able to top that up to the fluid is maxed out on the infill plug. You see that it's dripping out a bit, and then you're sure that the transmission is full with oil again. So just stop that. And yeah, now we're discussing on how to get rid of all the parts in the front, like to put the frozen struts out and everything. And that is where the big mess began, because someone lowered down the pressure on the torque, so I didn't get any nuts loose here, which was quite strange because everything was always normally coming loose with this thing quite nicely, but yeah, this time not. And then it was way easier with the hand. And Also tried here a little bit to loosen some screws with the impact wrench, with the impact driver. And then we had big trouble with the stabilizer bar, because normally you would have like some flat spots where you could with a wrench, but here you only have access to the stabilizer link with this triple scrabble nut. And yeah, to make it a little bit more easy, I was using a lot of penetrating oil, which did not really help because there was a lot of mileage on the car. And here just checked for the new coupling rods if they have this flat spots for the wrench. And they have, but the old ones did not have. They just had the hole in the screw for this multi-scroll or triple scroll internal nut. Yeah, always make sure that the dog head gets exercise. And yeah, then just slowly moving forward, trying again with a pneumatic impact. And after that did not really want to get loose, I just decided to use more power and just cut that damn thing off, because there was no chance of loosening that coupling rod. And so just cut it and yeah, tapped it with a hammer and it was gone. But then you still have to level the rest of the bolt to get that flush with the stabilizer bar, and then you can push out the rest of the screw. So this is done here, and time-consuming approach, but it worked. We then moved on to the central screw of the drive shaft, only to figure that this is the worst enemy I had so far in the shop. And this bolt is in there for 15 years, over 200,000 kilometers. And normally it's tied down with 180 Newton meters plus 180 degree of torsion angle. So it's pretty hefty in there. This is how you get loose of these clamps. Just fiddle a little bit with a flathead screwdriver and get that out. And then make sure that the brake calipers are out of the way and the brake rotors. And that was actually stupid, because then we did not have to, we didn't have any counter force for the impact. So what we tried then is using a bigger old plier, normally used for tubing, which had grip on the outer ring of the hub, which actually came new afterwards, so it didn't matter if it was a little bit destroyed. So this was not good, so we put on the brake rotors again, and then used just a newly bought Matador gear wrench from my colleague with a elongation rod, so the wrench is in the rod. And then after a little bit pushing on that, it just let go. So just broke that thing on the first day of usage. So pretty short life of that tool. Yeah. Then we went on, tried other things, like what is else in the shop lying around, getting more torque into that damn screw. I found this, I don't know, that's kind of in a retractable or elongable kind of tool, and just tried the same with a steel bar. But it just deformed, like there was no way this was moving just a little bit of the screw. So man, that was pain, I can tell you. Stupid screw, man. And it's also this special type of screw with this triple square, It's not Torx, by the way, it's just another system which we had to buy extra for this. So I never had that at any other car. So the Volkswagen is pretty special with their nuts and bolts. And then after another unsuccessful trial with the pneumatic impact, we then tried to heat that thing up a little bit. And tried again with the pneumatic impact wrench. And that also didn't do the trick. So yeah, we used brute force and it didn't move anything, so I just decided we need a lot more brute force, and I just directly welded that stupid knot to a longer steel bar. So instead of demolishing all the tools I have, I just decided to weld that knot, which was I think like 10 euros or something, just directly to the bar. And if it didn't work out, I just could cut that off afterwards, so no matter with this. So I just gave that a little bit of rough welding with some thick welds. And yeah, here you have that beauty. Wonderful. I think that's pretty much the longest wrench I ever had, like 3 meters. But I was pretty confident that this should be working. And yeah, what can I tell you? It did. Like, very easy. It made such easy work of that shit. Yeah, just with barely using half of my body weight, could get loose that dang screw within minutes. So this one's out now, and move on to the other side. And yeah, what can I tell you? It's just as easy. It was just as easy on the other side. So just barely putting any weight on that, and it just loosened up, which we had no success with before. But then again, this 3 meter long steel tubing was so much in the way that I just cut it off. Just yeah, I was left with like the nut in the tubing, which could be used with some more stable steel part which I had lying around. Just screw that out and eventually torque it down again later on. So the second screw is gone. I went just a little bit further in the process. Meanwhile, the pneumatic wrench was put on its original pressure again, 8 bars, or I guess 120 psi or something. Worked pretty well, so get loose of all that other parts, get rid of all that other parts hanging down there at the car. That was pretty straightforward for at least some moments. But I think you already know, right? That's not the end of the story. That's by far not the end of the story. When we thought the biggest enemy would be that special triple squirrel screw in the drive shaft, that was nothing against this shit. So the upper bearing of the McPherson strut would not come loose, no matter what we tried. So, and we started wondering, because 13 mil hex nut would not fit, a 14 mil hex nut would not fit. That's just looking, and yeah. Then we tried with a like cardon link on the gear wrench. You normally would have like an offset tool for that to reach there, but it's impossible to reach normally with the tools you have lying around. So first we thought like using pretty radical, rather stupid approach, which I did not like actually, because you put so much heat in there. Try to cover that with wet cloth, but that was so time consuming and stupid that yeah, we tried something else pretty unconventional. We just released the central rod of the strut, of the McPherson strut, in the car while having that on a wooden block, so that we could get rid of the whole pressure by just lifting the car a bit. So you see, by lifting the car, the pressure on the strut is released, and what we're left with then is just the strut mount, and so the upper mount of the strut is still stuck in the car, and now try to release that with a pneumatic hammer again, pneumatic impact wrench, and you see there that's such a mess. They used octagonal nuts at the factory, so there was no chance to get rid of these nuts without any special tool. So what I did then is welding on some 6-phase nuts in the wheel well, and that finally did the trick. Well, it was such a pain to get there and do that. So because this one bolt was completely stripped down with the angle grinder, I had to weld another bolt on top of that, and then finally we got rid of all that shit and junk. So you see that wonderful assembly. Yeah. That's the complete beauty. So of course this had to be done on the other side too, so we also just released the tension on the strut in the car, then lifted the car, and then put out the strut. The strut was still attached to the stabilizer bar with this coupling rod, which was just cut then with a angle grinder, and yeah, give the axle some taps with the nut and a hammer, and it moves out straight forward. And you can just fill the strut through the hoses, and you have it in hand finally. So simple, right? And also this is to be cut off again with the angle grinder, because there was no chance of getting that loose with anything, because there's just the counter in the inside of the screw with this special nut, which just instantly like exploded and gave. So it just cut that off and welded a nut on the rest of it. So this time, instead of cutting right at the stabilizer bar, this could be undone properly without damaging the stabilizer bar, which is quite a better approach, I guess. And yes, also here, yeah, the nuts are welded to these octagonal nuts. And to get rid of the steerer head, this also needed some heat. And in the first approach, it did not went easy loose, but with some heat and a proper grip with the parallel pliers, it just went off pretty easy. So that's one point. And now everything is undone more or less, and the steering head are just turned on after giving the threads some cleaning with a wire brush. And then the wheel bearings are undone from the hubs, and yeah, that's just loosening the screws with a pneumatic hammer and then hitting it with a hammer. Like if you have a shop press, that would be maybe easier, but this also does the trick. If you're wondering what that wooden block is, it's just like for the older type of mowing grass manually, where you sharpen that thing. So make sure to clean all the seats with a wire brush, so you have a parallel and flat and correct seat of the new bearing inside the hub. And you can use all different sorts of wire brush there. Just make sure that it's completely cleaned. Well, not the whole part, just where the new part is sitting in afterwards. And also this flange side should be cleaned, and also here where the new McPherson strut is going in, this can be cleaned manually with a wire brush. And yeah, this is just the strut compressor, which I bought for that project, and there's another video on that, on how to use that properly, but yeah, it's just compressing the spring. Very important to secure it with a chain, so that the spring cannot be flying around the shop. And then yeah, also I like to use this anti-seize on all metal contact surfaces. So maybe this is done in future or undone again in future, and it's way easier doing that. And before you put in the strut, you should better put in the wheel bearing. So this is a brand new bearing, and this is just very simple in that case. It's not pressed in, it's just screwed in. So also use anti-seize on the screws there, and just tighten them down very delicately with a pneumatic hammer, and then give it the correct torque from the OEM with the torque wrench afterwards. So this is the assembly on the left side, and make sure to use some grease on the surface there. We also then found that the right axle is having some sort of slack, which did not do any trouble while driving so far, but they also have to be changed. And the good thing at the Passat B6 is that they can be changed without touching any other parts, because the inner side is screwed to the motor block and transmission. So this will be done later on. So I first tried to lift that up by shear force and then holding it into place, but yeah, you can imagine that this went very well. So we just lowered the car a bit and put that on a chair which was standing around. Maybe could have used some wood to not damage that, but at least it went in pretty smoothly done. And you have to correct the position of the strut mount. On top of the strut there is some markings on the strut mount, which I will show you. So these are are 2 arrows which are leading in the driving direction, and you have the one hole on the outside of the car. So this is with a little pin showing backwards in driving direction. And then you can just mount all the screws, and the new strut mount came also with just common 6 flange nuts, not these octagonal stupid type. And this is torqued down with 15 Newton meters, 15, not 50. And yeah, then the brake caliper, that was our bad, was then to be pushed through there. So it would be smarter to have that done before, but it's still possible to get that through the hole there if you put the assembly a little bit away on the axle. And yeah, just like that. Now, fiddle a little to get the axle into the wheel bearing again, and then connect the coupling rod, torque that down to the OEM specifications, and then we build the other McPherson assembly. And then you see that special tool which I could not show you before because everything went a little bit in parallel. So this is just a special nut that is more or less like a flathead screwdriver, and you put that into the slot and turn it just 90 degrees to spread that open and give the possibility to put in the strut. And this needs to be hammered down quite some times until it is finally flush with the limit there. And this is also the only position where you can put in the securing screw again, because there's a little sheet of metal locking it otherwise. And then put in the lower mount there. I think it was 70 Newton meters maybe. From my experience, it's always good to feel if it's tight already, not always sticking hardly to these informations. So this side went easier because we first attached the strut and then afterwards attached the lower swing arm and the ball joint. And then put on some RTCs on all the screws again. Yeah, just me walking around a little bit confused without any orientation. I think I did that many times a day. And you see it's already dark outside, so the whole process of this project was over the whole day. Like we started at 9 in the morning and ended at, I think, yeah, maybe close to midnight in the evening, just because all the screws were so hard to get loose of, get rid of. And I'm finally done putting everything in again. What a horrible project, really. What a horrible project. Took so much time. But in the end, yeah, shiny new parts in, and pretty satisfying to have that in the end. And yeah, it's always good to finish something. And yeah, there was just one day where we could finish that project, and we did manage to finish it, so it's alright. And next time should look for the proper tools before and check everything. So we also had to drive in between to get that nut for the axles. And yeah, so now, because this needs to be torqued, I just thought of welding a nut to this wonderful assembly. And yeah, that's what I did here. Be sure to never wear gloves with rotating tools. So that's absolutely dangerous. Don't do that. And yeah, just getting rid of a little bit of the rust here, and then tack that down there onto this beautiful, marvelous piece of engineering. I'm using that Parkside welder since quite a while now, and so far it has never let me down. Also, when I'm doing like continuous work for longer periods of time, it's not having any issues. The only issue with that thing is that it's pretty loud and noisy because the fan is running on full speed all the time. But for me, I don't care, because yeah, in the shop it's always loud and noisy, so that bit of additional noise really is not that much of a problem. And just yeah, flush that weld seams a little bit in to get a little bit better grip with the nut. And yeah, that's mainly it. So now you can use that thing with the impact, and also some longer steel bar in the tubing. So next time would be easy work to lose these screws again, I guess. So now this can be used with the impact wrench and the pneumatic impact wrench and the normal, like manual impact wrench. So be sure to make the brake rotors clean again after working on the car, and just inside and outside as good as possible. It's always a good idea to first turn the bolts by hand a little bit, just to get the threads right, and then using the pneumatic hammer like there. And then, because I destroyed the plastic fairing thing here, the wind visor, whatever it's called, like this this part here, which is used an old soldering tool, and welded the plastics from the backside. So first I went along this crack, and then like wiggle a little bit from left to right to get a little bit deeper penetration and more material over the crack. That went pretty well, so that's an easy trick to repair some broken plastic parts. So this way we could just directly mount the wipers again. And meanwhile, my friend was putting out the last spark plug, which was blocked by some hose at the car. And yeah, he broke that because it like was so hard again, and after 15 years or so the material lost the complete flexibility, and so it just broke. And we replaced that with some tubing as a temporary fix. So all the spark plugs are new also now, and this is quite important to just clean out with a vacuum there, because all the drain holes are blocked with leaves and mud and whatever, like that builds up there pretty hefty, and then you have constant moisture rotting away the chassis of the car. So you surely don't want that. And yeah, to get the wheel straight again, we just used an aluminum. Thanks for watching, and check out that is normally used to level concrete. We did that on both sides dependently, so use the ladder on the other side just to get that thing on the road again. And yeah, it will be done at a shop professionally afterwards, no worries. So that's been it with the car so far. The front axle is completely renewed, and it drove well afterwards. No noises, everything fine. And that's with it with the project. Hope you learned something of that, and be sure to leave a comment and a like maybe. Thanks for watching and check out the other videos on the channel maybe.